All right, today we're going to dive into the core arguments of a really potent book called Seed of Destruction by Claudia Reid. It claims to be a stark exposé on corporate power and, how it affects every single one of us. So let's get right into it.
So right off the bat, the book's whole premise is laid bare with this quote. It's promising to pull back the curtain, suggesting that the economic world we all live in, well, it might have been deliberately shaped by some powerful forces that are usually kept hidden from the public eye.
Okay, Section 1, the book on a system. At its heart, Seed of Destruction puts forward a pretty bold argument that our economic system didn't just stumble, it was actively and intentionally manipulated by just a few powerful players, all for their own profit.
And this isn't just some abstract theory for the author. The book makes it very clear that Claudia Reid's entire investigation is fueled by her own direct, first-hand experience with what she describes as systemic corruption. That personal angle is really presented as the engine driving this whole story.
Moving into our second section, an illusion of prosperity. So, the book's next big claim is that the economic strength that so many people believed in was really just a facade, a carefully constructed illusion hiding a much, much darker reality.
And this is where the book lays out that central conflict. On one side, you have the public image, these solid, stable companies that were considered too big to fail. But on the other side, the hidden reality the book argues for was a system that was actually built on deception. One that ultimately thrived at the direct expense of regular workers and their families.
All right, Section 3, the devastating fallout. According to the book, that illusion, well, it was always going to shatter. The narrative then draws a straight line from these supposed corporate schemes to the very real, very painful consequences for millions of people.
The book traces this story over about 2 decades. It points to what it calls early warning signs, like the huge WorldCom bankruptcy right after 9/11. Then it follows the slow, steady drain of manufacturing jobs happening for years and argues that it all led up to the huge economic crisis we saw in 2020.
And the book is absolutely clear that the real price for all of this was paid in human terms. The main point is that behind all the corporate collapses and market numbers were literally millions of lost jobs. And with them, millions of shattered lives and broken futures.
So, that brings us to Section 4, Unmasking the Deceit. How exactly was all this manipulation supposedly pulled off? Well, the book claims to lay out the whole playbook of corporate schemes that were used to rig the game. So the book gets into some specific tactics. You've got the kind of thing you might expect, right? Like falsifying earnings reports to trick investors. But then it alleges some pretty wild stuff, like creating what it calls fraudulent job markets, basically posting tons of fake job listings to give a false sense of growth and mess with unemployment data. And all of this, the book claims, was happening while executives were cashing in on huge bonuses, and political influence was supposedly used to make sure nobody looked too closely.
And this quote right here really gets to the absolute heart of the book's argument. These massive corporate failures, they're not presented as accidents or just unfortunate market cycles. The entire premise is built on revealing a shocking truth, that these collapses were the direct and intended result of deliberate actions.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. This brings us to Section 5, a blueprint for change. The book doesn't just leave us with the problem, it pivots pretty hard to proposing a solution. What it calls a blueprint for some really fundamental change.
And this blueprint is laid out as a 3-step process. First, it starts with demanding accountability, holding the people at the top responsible. From there, it calls for building a totally new ethical system, rewriting the rules of the game to put fairness ahead of just pure profit. And what's the ultimate goal? To rebuild an economy that's actually designed to serve the public good, not just a handful of people at the top.
And in the end, the book's final message is really one of empowerment. It shifts the spotlight away from the powerful people at the top and instead shines it on the strength and resilience of all the people who were affected. It's less a story of being a victim and much more of a rallying cry, urging readers to stand up and demand that change themselves. Which of course leaves us with this final, really powerful question. Seed of Destruction makes its case for a broken system and offers up its own blueprint to fix it. But it kind of turns the last question over to us. If a system really is broken, what does it truly take to rebuild it? That's definitely something to think about.